Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Also, happy Valentine's Day. I'm sorry this is going up on Friday and not Thursday. With my new schedule with the bar that I have opened and that I'm currently running, I might have to change the days that I post. I'm kind of feeling out the next couple weeks to figure out if I can keep Monday or Thursday. I might have to switch to like Tuesday, Friday, Sunday or something like that. But I will let you know, but still working on it. Still gonna get you guys 2 videos a week up until I sort all of my scheduling out, and then I will be back hopefully to the 3 videos a week. But today we are doing a slightly delayed January wrap up again. I didn't get through many books last month. I doubt I'll get through too many books in February, but then hopefully everything will chill out and I'll have everything sorted out and be back to my regular scheduled posting and reading. But we have 3 books to talk about this month. 2 of them do have full-length reviews on my channel already. One of them I finished right at the beginning of January, so it is a Christmas collection, so I'm going to very briefly breeze over that one. But yeah, so those are my updates on my end, and let's dive into my January wrap-up, because I had a 5-star and I had a 2-star. So we're starting the year off in an interesting place. But first up, I read The Darkest Night, Chilling Stories from the Biggest Names in Horror. This is a Christmas collection edited by Lindy Ryan. I got this in my most recent, I got this in my December Nightworms package. Not my most recent, my December Nightworms package. It features works by Josh Malerman, Rachel Harrison, Darcy Coates, Christopher Golden, Eric LaRocca. I actually read my first thing by LaRocca. So really interested to chat about this. This was a 4-star read for me. I have my hesitations with short story collections. Sometimes like a theme will really blow me away. I really love October Screams, which is a short story collection I read last year that I'm just like absolutely obsessed with. I think it's a fantastic collection and it's kind of inspired me to keep reading more collections. This one was fine. It kind of reminded me of like Christmas Horror Stories as well, which is the other short story collection I read back in December. There were hits, there were misses, there were some new authors that I got to get kind of a taste for, but nothing really blew me away. A lot of these stories ended up focusing on Yule instead of Christmas, which is interesting. In fact, the vast majority, I would say, of these stories were very Yule focused. I will say I really enjoyed Josh Malerman's Children Aren't the Only Ones Who Know Where the Presents Are Hidden. If you have read Incidents Around the House, which was my top read of 2024, this felt like such a precursor to Other Mommy, which is a character featured in that story, and it felt like this could have been tied to the same world, the same realm, the same concept, and I really enjoyed that short story, and I was really pleasantly surprised by how dark and depraved and similar it was to Incidents Around the House. So that, I think, was probably my favorite story in this entire collection. I actually really enjoyed Eric LaRocca's short story. It was told primarily through, like, letters, and I was fascinated by it. It actually made me want to go and pick up one of his novellas. I think he really only does like novellas and like longer short story collections. But I've heard so many mixed things about LaRocca, and I really enjoyed his short story in this, and I found it just unnerving, but like I knew what I was getting into because of what I've heard about LaRocca, and I liked what he did with it. I thought it was kind of grotesque, but I thought it was kind of done in a very, like, I don't want to say extreme horror style, but like just like kind of kissed the concept of extreme horror without ever diving into it, and it made me very curious to read more from him. So I was very pleasantly surprised with that. Oh, Darcy Coates' story was really cute. It reminded me quite a lot of the Merchant's House Museum here in New York. Like, in my mind, I just imagined everything happening in the Merchant's House, which is one of the oldest buildings still preserved here in Manhattan. It's a really cool museum. You can go on ghost tours there. You can do a lot of really fun stuff. And I just, like, really loved the way that Darcy Coates wrote that story. It felt like just classic Darcy Coates, with this kind of cozy concept, and still had like this like brutal murder mystery concept intertwined with it, which I really enjoyed as well. Those were definitely the big like standout ones to me. Rachel Harrison and Nat Cassidy both had like solid solid concepts, and I enjoyed Candy Cane by Tommy Hudson. I've never heard of that author before, but the payoff was trying to figure out why the novel, or why the short story was titled Candy Cane, and you get at the very, very, very end, and it kind of brought everything together. I was kind of unsure of where that story was going, and kind of the brutality of those final few sentences. I was like, oh, I see what you did there. So this was, all in all, a pretty solid collection, I would say. Some stuff really did kind of just not stick with me at all, which is why it gets a 4-star review from me. Like, I didn't love the Lindy Ryan story, even though she did edit the entire thing, and there was a couple stories that I was just kind of okay with. But yeah, overall, a solid collection. If you're looking for good wintry horror and like kind of like folklore with some Christmas adjacent, some Yule adjacent, this is definitely something to pick up for next year for sure. Okay, next up, I read The Last One at the Wedding by Jason Rekulak. Now, I do have a whole full-length review on this. Jason Rekulak is, like, constantly getting 5-star reviews from me. Hidden Pictures I read about 2 years ago, and I really loved it. This one I liked even more. This was a full 5-star review. I'm going to read the inside flap of this one. It says, "It's been 3 years since Frank Sikowski last heard from his daughter, and he's devastated by their long, unhappy estrangement. But then an unexpected phone call from Maggie changes everything. She says she's getting married, and she wants her father to walk her down the aisle. Frank is overjoyed by the news. Here at last is a chance for reconciliation, a perfect opportunity to repair their fractured relationship. But a disturbing discovery about his future son-in-law leads Frank to wonder if Maggie is making a terrible mistake. And once he arrives at the wedding, an extravagant 3-day affair set at a luxurious lakefront estate, the warning signs keep piling up. Can Frank unravel the truth about Maggie's fiancé before it's too late? An edge-of-your-seat thriller that delves deep into love, marriage, and family ties. The Last One at the Wedding offers non-stop surprises and brilliant suspense." This is a really interesting mystery. It's kind of veiled at the beginning almost as like a murder mystery, but it really is about a family dynamic, and it's a really heavy commentary on like the upper class versus the lower classes. I really, really loved this one. I thought it was filled with really, really well developed characters. I found myself really connecting to our lead. I loved the setting. I loved this kind of disastrous, almost performative wedding that you get, and this whole like lifestyles of the rich and famous through the eyes of somebody who works kind of like a working class job. I just thought this was an absolutely incredible novel. I was so thrilled with it. I loved the twists and turns in it. Some things I didn't see coming, some things I definitely picked up on, but I really, really enjoyed it. It has a couple flaws. It has a few characters that I think are a little irritating for my taste towards the beginning, and a couple plot points that I really had to suspend my disbelief to get into. But overall, I thought this was such a solid mystery, I guess. It is a mystery. It is a mystery. It is a mystery of what is actually happening. Things are definitely not what they appear in this novel. But it isn't really a murder mystery. Like that's there, and it's kind of danced about throughout the story, but that's not the core of this thriller. And I think that's why I liked it so much, because all of the murders and who's committing the murders are kind of on they're kind of in the background of the actual mystery that is unraveling. And I thought it was a really, really unique way to kind of do this, like, everybody's isolated at this wedding in the middle of nowhere at this camp, and somebody among them is taking somebody out. Like, I really liked how it didn't fall into any of those kind of, like, cliches that you would normally see, and was able to kind of create this, like, really interesting family drama about the relationship between a father and his daughter, a father and his son, fiancés, an adoptive mother to an adoptive daughter. Like, there were so many family dynamics, like, apart from the fact that it's nowhere near as, like, depraved and depressing as an Anya Allborn novel, the familial questioning of loyalty is so strong in this book that it did remind me quite a lot of the kind of topics that Anya Allborn likes to touch on. So I was really, 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 really happy with this book. I breezed through it. It was such a fun read. Okay, and last but not least, I read Black Tide by Casey Jones. This has been sitting in my TBR pile forever, and I finally picked it up. I'm going to read the back of the book. It says, "It was just another day at the beach. Then the world ended. Mike and Beth were strangers before the night of the meteor shower. Chance made them neighbors. A bottle of champagne brought them together, and a shared need for human connection sparked something more. Following their drunken and desperate one-night stand, the two discover the astronomical event has left widespread destruction in its wake. But the cosmic light show was only part of something much bigger and far more terrifying. When a lost car key leaves them stranded on an empty stretch of Oregon coast, and inhuman screams echo from the dunes, when the rising tide reaches for their car and unspeakable horrors close in around them, these two self-destructive souls must fight to survive a nightmare of apocalyptic scale. This is kind of like a slice of life story, like a little snapshot into the beginning of a post-apocalyptic event told through the perspectives of two people. I really enjoyed the first like 40 to 50 pages. I was super on board. I really liked the concept. I liked like the kind of like meet cute that launched everything forwards with like our protagonist. I liked the setting. The problem was it then kind of stalled. I felt like this entire novel really felt like it should have been the first 2 acts of like a 5-act story. We never really left the beach. And I also found that our characters were incredibly, as it says on the back, self-destructive in a way that made them really unlikable and continued to keep them at these kind of unlikable moments. They never felt like they had any growth to them, even though growth was kind of being projected around them. But you can't really grow as characters over the course of what is basically 36 hours in the entirety of this novel, and the vast majority of it is about 12 to 18 hours in one setting. So I just had a really difficult time kind of connecting with what was happening. I thought the post-apocalyptic concepts in this were cool. It's kind of like an alien invasion, sort of. And I really liked what Casey Jones was doing to kind of create this kind of different style of post-apocalyptic event and like the catalyst that set it off. I thought that was really cool and really interesting. However, it gets explained to the reader in kind of this like moment of exposition from a main character where you're like, why would you know that? There's just like no feasible way for you to know it. So it really took me out of the story when characters would kind of just like suddenly know more than they should and just like basically explain it so that the reader understood what was happening. It felt kind of lazy in my opinion. Also, crazy trigger warnings for the death of an animal in this book. I thought it was handled really badly. I don't think it did anything to add to the plot. I thought it was extremely unnecessary. And I hate that it constantly gave the reader false hope that maybe the animal would be okay. So that dropped it down to from a 3-star to a 2-star for me. It wasn't a 1-star because it did have these moments that were really redeemable, and I really liked the first, again, like third quarter of the book. But then it really needed to go more into development, and I think it really needed to work out some character development and growth and kind of certain plot points. There was a lot of times where I felt like a character was just inserted into a situation to like help get people out of wherever it was because the author hadn't found a way to kind of naturally make that progression happen. So wasn't really thrilled with this. But again, the first half was really promising, and then it just slowly declined, and then kind of nosedived down to a 2-star on the last like 40 pages. I also found the switching of perspectives between our two protagonists to be really difficult to follow. They were so similar in tone and voice that at first I kind of felt like, well, maybe the author's really struggling to switch between perspectives because this is a debut novel. However, there is eventually a third character whose perspective is introduced, and I could always tell when it was that third character, so I just felt like his two leads were just so similar in tone and thought and voice that it really just kind of blurred together. So definitely struggled with that one. So 2 stars. Anyways, that is my three books of January, which is so sad. I usually try and double that. February is going to be rough for me as well, but I'm hoping again to get everything back up to normal in March. Once all of the kinks have been worked out and I'm back to like kind of a set schedule and I'm not as fully hands-on every single day at my bar. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe buttons down below. And I will catch you all in the next one. Mwah.